The cold wind howled through the trees, rustling the dry autumn leaves that carpeted the forest floor. The campsite was secluded deep in the heart of Blackwood Forest, miles away from civilization. No cell service, no electricity, just the flickering glow of the campfire and the unsettling sounds of the wilderness. Jake, Lisa, Aaron, and Molly were on a weekend camping trip, eager for an adventure. They had been best friends since college, and every year they made it a tradition to escape into the wild, disconnecting from the world. But this year felt different. The air carried an eerie weight, and the trees loomed taller, as if watching their every move. As the night grew darker, they sat around the fire, roasting marshmallows and exchanging ghost stories. Jake, always the skeptic, scoffed at the idea of the supernatural. Come on, guys. Ghosts? Demons? It's all in your head. There's a logical explanation for everything, he said, biting into his marshmallow. Aaron smirked. All right, tough guy. Then how do you explain the disappearances in this forest? People vanish here every year, and their bodies are never found. Lisa shuddered, pulling her hoodie closer around her. Maybe they just got lost. It's easy to get turned around in a place like this. Or maybe, Molly whispered, leaning in, something takes them. A gust of wind blew through the trees, sending a chill down their spines. The fire crackled, casting long shadows that danced menacingly against the tent walls. Okay, enough creepy talk. Let's get some sleep, Jake said, standing up and stretching. We have a long hike tomorrow. They retreated into their tents, zipping them up tightly. The night was still, except for the occasional hoot of an owl or the rustle of leaves. But then, around 2 a.m., a sound echoed through the forest. A low, guttural growl. Lisa jolted awake, her heart pounding. She turned toward Molly, who was already sitting up, eyes wide with fear. Did you hear that? Lisa whispered. Molly nodded, her face pale in the moonlight filtering through the tent fabric. Another sound. Crunching footsteps. Slow. Deliberate. Lisa held her breath. Was it an animal? A bear? No, these footsteps were too heavy, too calculated. From the other tent, Jake's voice broke the silence. Aaron, is that you? Silence. Then, a sudden, violent thrashing outside. A scream, Aaron's voice, piercing the night. Lisa and Molly scrambled out of their tent just as Jake unzipped his. The fire had died down, leaving only glowing embers. The darkness felt suffocating. Aaron, Jake called out, his flashlight slicing through the blackness. No response. Lisa grabbed Molly's arm. We need to go. But then, they saw it. A tall, emaciated figure standing just beyond the tree line. Its limbs were elongated, unnaturally thin. Its face, a grotesque mask of stretched gray skin with hollow, black eyes that seemed to absorb the light. It grinned. Aaron was nowhere to be seen. Jake cursed under his breath. We have to find him. No, Molly cried. We have to leave. Now. But before they could move, a wet, gurgling sound came from the darkness. Slowly, something was crawling, dragging itself toward them. The flashlight beam landed on Aaron's twisted, broken body. His limbs were bent in unnatural angles, his mouth opening and closing as if trying to speak. His eyes were wide with terror, but he wasn't moving on his own. The thing behind him had its fingers buried deep in his back, puppeteering him like a marionette. Lisa screamed. Jake grabbed the nearest burning stick from the fire and hurled it. The creature let out a shriek that echoed through the forest, retreating into the shadows. But Aaron, he was still crawling toward them, his broken bones cracking with each unnatural movement. Run, Jake yelled. They sprinted through the woods, branches slashing at their skin. The thing chased them, its movements erratic, unnatural, inhuman. The car. They just needed to reach the car. Lisa fumbled with the keys as they piled in, locking the doors. The headlights illuminated the road ahead, but in the rearview mirror, it was still there. Standing in the middle of the road. Watching. Smiling. As they sped away, Jake whispered, We're never coming back here. Molly, still shaking, turned to him. What about Aaron? Jake didn't answer. But in the distance, beyond the roar of the engine, they could still hear his screams. Hours later, as dawn began to break over the forest, the creature returned to the campsite. They picked up Aaron's body, what was left of him, and dragged it deeper into the woods. The ground swallowed them as if the forest itself was hungry. Days later, a search party combed through Blackwood Forest, finding no trace of Aaron or any signs of what happened. The campsite remained eerily untouched, as if the night had never happened. And yet, the whispers persisted. Locals spoke of strange shadows moving between the trees, of hollow eyes peering from the darkness, of a figure that waits for new campers to arrive. A legend grew, and the disappearances continued. To this day, Blackwood Forest remains an unsolved mystery. Those who enter don't always come back. And if you do, never look back when you hear your name being called from the darkness. Because it might not be your friend calling you. It might not be human at all.